almost 1 minute, he says. Okay, I can't hear you, Chandrash, so like it's hard for the speakers to see what you're saying. I haven't done an in-person event in like 2 years, so I think we needed to get here at, yeah, I think we need to get here at 7 a.m. We're ready? Yep. Okay, sounds good. Thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Greg. I'm the head of ecosystem and fundraising at Shardeum. It's really good to be back in person. We started hosting these events in 2018 or 2019. During COVID, we did all of our events online. So it feels great to be back today. We're excited to present the progress we made in our software over Q3. We're going to demonstrate a feature called Autoscaling, similar to Web2 distributed systems, how they can auto-scale based on the demand or load of the network. Shardeum today will be the first blockchain to demonstrate increasing or decreasing its TPS capacity and growing or removing validator nodes relative to the load of the network. Every single quarter, we do a recap of the progress we made in the previous quarter. We hold ourselves to hitting our milestones. We want to demonstrate that we're continuously making improvements in our software and achieving our goals on time. There's a lot that's happened over the past quarter, a lot of really exciting events. Today we'll touch upon the marketing, business, ecosystem, and tech updates. But first, let's get started with the demo of autoscaling. All right, hey everybody. We're just pulling up the monitor client, and we'll share that in a second. But yeah, today we're pretty excited because we're going to be demonstrating scaling, which is an important aspect to running an efficient network that can keep gas prices under control. The reason for that is you don't want to have 100 times the amount of validators in the network, or you don't want 10 times too few validators. So I think people that have been following in the community and maybe some past presentations know that we have active nodes and standby nodes. So today what we have is a network of 250 active nodes. Cool, and that's going up on the screen now. And there are also, we don't have it rendered in this view, but there's also 250 standby nodes right now as well. Tom, one of our core devs, is going to be running some load testing for us as well. So we're good to start 10. Let's see, the first 10 load testers there. We're going to apply load to this network. That'll be like a pretty good amount of load for this number of nodes and the sharding calculations and whatnot. But it won't be enough load for the network to want to scale up yet. And I'll talk more about the scaling up process in a second. The load we're running today is pretty cool. It's not just real simple. It's not overly simple transactions. They're smart contract calls. So we've deployed I think maybe thousands of ERC20 tokens and tens of thousands of users, and they're just going to be trading tokens like crazy in this network. In addition to that, I don't know if we'll have it pulled up for this demo or not, but we've also deployed an AMM and some other more complex things that involve high levels of composability, because when you use an AMM to swap tokens, there's a lot of different smart contracts involved, and they live in different shards in the network. And so to have that composability work when your sharded network is under load is a cool thing to see.
And any minute, I'm going to watch from my screen here as well, just to see. There should be some load starting. One second. Yep. So the first stage of the load is a little bit slow. What it does is that the contracts are just kind of like deploying. There are accounts deploying like a few thousand smart contracts. So we're putting up like a couple thousand ERC20 tokens into the network, and then after that, like once it'll wait for a second to make sure that the contracts are deployed, and then it's going to unleash like a high load of transactions to just stress the network. But yeah, I'm just trying to see if that's still coming through okay. Yeah, so we've got like 10 TPS right now, and that's just the contracts loading, being loaded into the network. So I'll talk a bit about like auto scaling while that's kind of like getting going. The auto scaling is not something that takes dev intervention. We don't have to like upload a new version of the software to like manually create a new shard. Something that kind of goes hand in hand with auto scaling is that we have like a dynamically sharded network. And so that every node you add to it actually does increase the performance of the network ever so slightly. Because essentially the amount of accounts, address space, transactions, and data that any given node has to deal with shrinks ever so slightly with every node that joins in.
And how many nodes do we have per shard?
Oh yeah, in this one, we're doubling from what we had last time because we've had performance upgrades. So last demo we had like, oh yeah, like we had like about 20, and this time we've got like, we have double that. But anyhow, the we in the last milestone, we've made a couple like technical upgrades that are going to help us to get like larger and larger consensus group sizes. And one of those is being able to well, when you have when you have an ERC20 contract and you're thinking about a sharded network, or sorry, any smart contract, there can be account data that's spread out through many shards in your network. And you can imagine some contracts might even have, some contract calls might have like hundreds of accounts, right? So you don't want to cause like the entire network to process this one transaction all at once. And the upgrade we put in place since the last demo is that we're able to like trustlessly get the data to a delegated shard, and that delegated shard still has the full like consensus size we want for security, and then that shard will process the transaction and be able to the nodes will form like a receipt where all the nodes in the consensus group can sign it, and then we'll gossip that receipt out to the sort of the transactional group, which is the dynamic group of all the nodes that were involved in this transaction in some way. And we then like send the appropriate data in an efficient way to the nodes that maybe were not executing the transaction, but they had an account involved. So that was an upgrade that went in this last quarter, and basically it's allowed us to have twice as many, or double our consensus group size, because our actual dynamic groups of what is executing the transaction has been able to shrink. And that pays off even like for an ERC20 transaction. I think the last time it would, on average, your transaction would involve like 4 shards, but not always. It's kind of statistical. Sometimes you can get lucky, all your accounts like are overlapping really close and they land in the same shard. But then AMM contracts are going to involve a lot more than that. So what we have right now is 140 TPS, and can we switch this to the charts page? All right, cool. Yeah, I like this page a lot. What you see is basically the red line is our network load. So that's a load that's kind of consensed on by all the nodes in the network. It's a logical load. The green line is sort of more of an individual node load, and that's based on like how it's roughly maps to how much like CPU energy or percentage use the nodes are using, but it's not exact. We have our own like internal profiling system that kind of picks up on the important code. The blue line is our transactions per second. So we're just kind of stable at like 135 here. And I'm gonna ask Tant to launch our next. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh,
Where did we start?
Okay.
Where are we at right now, and where are we expecting to go for the rest of
Oh, got it. Okay, so yeah, so what we're doing here is we started at 120, 130 TPS, and we're launching more load testers. But I think what we'll do is we'll switch to other presentations during that time, and we'll keep these charts up. And the load in a few minutes here is going to be increased to probably like 170, 180 TPS, which is too much for 250 nodes. Not that it's like it's not gonna take them down. Actually, what happens is they detect that like loads higher than they're comfortable with, and they all start a voting process where they say like, let's increase the network size. Standby nodes are then allowed to like rotate into the network in the active node set grows. But sounds like I'll hand it over to you guys for a minute then.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So moving forward, would love to pass over the call to Nischal Shetty, our co-founder. Nischal has some exciting updates to share with you that we've achieved over the past three months. Sorry, Nischal, could you check your mic? I think we can't hear you. There we go. We can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I think some delay. All right. Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. And I think we got some really interesting numbers that you can see on the screen. But before that, what you just witnessed was, like the first step, which is we had about 200 to 250 nodes, and you were seeing about 130 to 140 TPS. What's going to happen next is, the team is going to increase the number of transactions that hit the nodes, and when the transaction capacity reaches a point where the nodes cannot process all of them, the network will start auto-scaling. Now, this whole process takes some time, so we thought during that in between period, how about we talk about our progress until now. So first things first, if you look at the slide out here, we launched the whole Shardeum project in February this year, and within a few months we launched our testnet, and we saw some really amazing feedback from everyone. From the first testnet, then we moved on to launching Liberty 2.0, which was a sharded test network. That was in August this year. What we've been seeing is every month the number of transactions, the number of people using the testnet and testing it out, the number of smart contracts, the size of the community, everything's been growing. If you look at, we've got over 250,000 users who've tried the testnet. I think this is probably one of the fastest 250K users that a testnet has reached anywhere in the world. And I think this is all because of the enthusiasm that the community has shown towards Shardeum. And I would request every one of you to keep pushing your friends to try out. It's a testnet. It's a good way to try a blockchain. I think the other significant thing is the size of the community. So we are over 150,000 people now around the world. India definitely has the highest number of people, but I can see a lot of other geographies growing. We've seen some tremendous interest from Nigeria, from Turkey, and a lot of other countries. So I would say let's keep getting people from our respective nations onto trying out the testnet. In terms of our team size, so I think the last time when we demonstrated, we were about 20, 22 people. Now we are over 35 people spread across the world. And we intend to hire more. We'll continue to grow the team as well. Can you go to the next one? All right. I think this was something that was in the news in the last few weeks, and I'm sure everyone has by now heard that we've raised over $18 million, and we've done this in a very non-traditional way. I would say the usual way to raise a large fund like this is you find a large investor who would put, let's say, if you're raising 18 million, you would find an investor who invests maybe $5 or $7 or $8 million, and those investors are called a lead investor. And then you go to a few more investors and just close the round with maybe 5 or 6 or 7 investors. That's an easy way. We chose not to do that simply because we had a particular objective in mind. The number one was we did not want any investor to have a large chunk of the SHM tokens. That was like the first primary goal, that there should not be any token concentration. The second was we wanted to make sure that we involved as many investors from as many geographies, so that we can take the help of all of these investors to grow in different geographies around the world, and not just be like concentrated on just one specific geography and become a local chain. We want to be a global chain. So if you look at the kind of investors we've got, I think we've sort of touched every geography. I think just a few continents maybe we did not get investors, but most of the continents we've got investors. We've got investors from North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia. So Africa. We've tried to make sure that we have our investor base spread out, and so it's over 50 investors who participated. We've also got a lot of good angels across the world who've joined the round. I'm pretty excited. Most of the funds will go into growing the team, building out the test nets, getting it to mainnet, building out the communities around the world, and on growing the Shardeum brand. That's our objective with this fundraise. Let's go to the next one. Okay. I wanted to give everyone a brief update on some of the marketing activities that we've been doing at Shardeum. And while we're doing a lot of things, we thought it best to highlight some of the things that have really taken off in a very good way. I think the first is proof of community. Now, if you're from India, you would have, I hope you've attended at least one of the meetup. What we are doing is we are having in-person meetups in different cities around India. In the last 2 months, we've had over 16 meetups, and we've got close to 1,000 people who've participated in these meetups. the idea is to sort of build a playbook on how do you run a meetup, and then use this to one scale the number of meetups we do in India. Uh, the objective is maybe can we do 100 meetups a month, or can we do maybe 1,000 meetups a month, and then replicate this around the world. So if you're from any country, and if you want our help in testing this out, please reach out to us. We would love to see these meetups happening around the world. I think these meetups help grow the Web3 ecosystem in general, because the idea is to teach everyone about what blockchains are, what Web3 is. So please reach out to us if you're from any country or any city where you think meetups are not happening. Our team will be happy to help you out. We've also had just 3 developer workshops. Now this is something, again, we are trying to build a playbook. The idea is always first to learn, test it out, and then scale it up. So we've had these 3 developer workshops, a lot of learning, and we intend to continue doing this. We've also been trying campus webinars. Now this is where you reach out to the students, and we've seen a lot of enthusiasm from different colleges around India, and we hope to again understand this and then eventually scale this to maybe thousands of colleges around the world. I think the other interesting thing that we've done is we have something called as a dApp library that you can go and check out, where you can see all of the dApps that are being built on Shardeum. Now there are quite a few dApps being built, and some of the dApps have in fact gotten over 10,000, 15,000 users. So do check it out. Do try those dApps. I think we need. Every one of us have to support these devs who are so enthusiastically building on the test net, and help them get to be ready for the main net. The other thing that, and this is something we've been trying to do, I would say for the first time, which is attending events around the world. We've attended events in India, in Singapore, in the US, and in South Korea. The objective is to have the Shardeum presence around the world. We've in fact even had a few events we've participated as speakers. Our team has spoken at a few events, and we'll continue to do this throughout the next few months. Greg, can we go to the next slide? Okay, this is all the proof of community event pictures, and I think so. This is something I would say. All of these articles that you keep reading, for us, the goal is build out the Shardeum brand, and the way to build a brand is to make sure that people read about you. And this is where a lot of these PR activities, a lot of the I would say discussions and explanations about blockchains are being written by our teams in various publications. This is all the objective is to build out the Shardeum brand, be one of those top layer 1 brands that people talk about. And as you can see, we've been covered by media, a lot of media in India, as well as a lot of international media, and we'll continue to push this. A request to all of you is, if you know media in your local geographies, please help us get some articles there. We are happy to help you. Maybe you can write it. It's not like it has to be only Nischal or only one person. We would love to see Shardeum explanations written by you in your local media. So do again reach out to our team. We are happy to help. So this, I think I've been also tweeting about this. We've crossed over 70,000 people on Twitter. Our Discord channel crossed over 50,000, and all of this is organic growth. Whatever you're seeing, some great growth numbers in front of you. I think Discord has really worked out well. What's happening is everyone's joining the Discord channel. They're looking at the kind of conversations that everyone's having, and they're inviting their friends. So since the last time we demonstrated and spoke about our numbers, we've grown over 300% now. These growth numbers that you see, it's in the last 3 months. So Discord has been like the best performing, followed by Twitter. We intend to get into other channels, but we're trying to focus on these two a lot more now. Yeah, that's about it for me. Thanks a lot.
Watching this presentation today. It's not just the Shardeum Foundation benefiting from this growth and this opportunity. This is really an opportunity for the community, and we're all building this together. And with that, what's really exciting about Shardeum Foundation's investors is they're also looking to invest in the ecosystem and find new applications being built or different service providers in the Shardeum ecosystem and help support their growth. So if you discovered Bitcoin in 2011, you wouldn't really be upset about discovering Bitcoin in 2011 today. It's a massive opportunity for everyone. I think the same goes for Shardeum. So today watching, just remember, you have the opportunity to build something new, and you have support from thousands of people and some of the top investors in the world. With that, let's see the progress that's been made on the demonstration and where the network is at. We'll pass the mic back to our engineer, Andrew Foster, to take over.
All right. Hi again. So we were getting updates on the project. Our auto scaling has been continuing to grow up. Oh yeah, there we go. All right. So what we're seeing here is, I know it's a little bit small, but the sort of yellow dots around the edge are nodes that are syncing in. So we have currently 43 nodes syncing into the network, and we have 305 active. And due to the scaling votes, the network currently desires 366 nodes. And so we haven't increased the load since that first boost in load. So we're just still kind of hovering at about 170 transactions per second. So what's going to happen in like any minute now is when this next group of probably like 40 nodes complete their sync into the network, the network's going to be okay again. It's going to be like, oh, yeah, we have the right amount for this amount of nodes, and the desired node count will stop like climbing up for a while. And so then when that happens, oh yeah, let's go to the graph. What we have here, we've got a little bit of wavy lines going on, but yeah, here's our node count. As it was bumping up, there are about 30 or 40 nodes joining at a time. And when nodes join, they don't get to choose what shard they go into. There's a process that puts them into the network. They hop in, and they actually have to synchronize data for the data that they cover. I actually brought up this node sync timeline also. So this was like right before I drove in this morning. We started the 500 nodes, and 250 kind of scaled up over time. The reason it's an exponential curve is because basically the larger the network is, the more nodes you can grow at any time without too much impact. And so we got to where that was, and the demo started, and then we probably increased load sometime around here, and then you can see the network, it basically started voting more nodes, and we had a big chunk of nodes, that line, join in, and more join in, and more join in. They're able to join in and sync pretty quickly. Yeah. The initial 250. Oh yeah, that's right. It just didn't need more it didn't need more nodes at that point. That's right. Yeah, we bumped it up from like 120, 130 TPS to 170. So it was like the load increased, and yeah, the nodes, they just used their they consensed essentially that the network needed to grow. and we were, let's see. And so, yeah, on this chart, we're continuing to see the nodes like grow up. And let me go back to this demo. When I tab back, it shows all the transactions since we last were away. So we get to see this real pretty graphic for a second there. And now we're back to sort of more current transactions.
And just to give people a perspective and some context, what does 176 transactions per second typically equate? And what are these transactions?
Oh yeah, so these transactions, they're token swaps. So they're actually like different EOAs on the network making smart contract calls to transfer ERC20 tokens to each other. And were you asking about like how that compares to other networks or?
Just to give an idea, are these messaging transactions? Are these protocol transactions?
Oh yeah.
Actual user-driven transactions. What are these?
Oh yeah, these are this when you see that TPS number, that means like actual EVM transactions that are making a smart contract call. So like we could have done like a simpler thing and just done like a coin transfer, some SHM to another, but these calls actually every single transaction there invokes the virtual machine.
These are actual true user-driven transactions.
Correct. Yeah, I mean our users today are robots, but right. Yes, they're but they're
and behind each of those transactions probably 100 additional transactions that are protocol.
Right. And we don't count it.
No, we're not like Solana. We don't protocol transactions.
If we put protocol transactions up, you'd see some much bigger numbers there. But
this is a demonstration, but in real life, like what's happening here? What does this mean for like a real life production environment? Like what's autoscaling going to do when we're on mainnet?
Yeah, the core thing with autoscaling in the mainnet is that the network maintains like the maximum efficiency, because at the end of the day, it's like your network efficiency is what keeps your gas prices affordable long term. So being able to match your validator set to the node that's going on is just a core kind of principle of that.
Yeah. So right now we're kind of demonstrating like continuous growth in the number of transactions and traffic on the network. So in real world context, this is like a few applications that are just continuing to increase in popularity and getting more and more traffic. And in a blockchain that can't auto scale, like what would happen if a blockchain didn't have auto scaling and this traffic continues to increase?
Got it. Yeah, if it was like a single sharded blockchain, then you would have to increase gas prices to basically like do supply and demand and hit a target TPS that's your maximum for the network to be healthy. Or if it was a statically sharded network, then they would maybe have to wait for a certain number of additional validators to be ready and like create another shard. I don't know how everyone else manages their shards, but for us, it's very dynamic.
Yeah, it's like no central point, no central authority. Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Andrew's just a few points there and just say that in a real world context, what's going on here with autoscaling and why it's important and awesome is because in an uncharted blockchain, as you get more more TPS and more transactions, eventually that uncharted blockchain is going to reach its throughput capacity, and it's going to have more transactions being submitted to the network than its capacity to process them. And so a queue of transactions will build up, and users will start bidding on gas fees to prioritize their transactions first, and then you run into that rising gas fee challenge. And some of the existing sharded networks, it requires humans, the developers of these blockchains, to monitor the network and determine when it's the right time to add another shard to the network. What's so exciting about the autoscaling that's happening here is the network is autonomously determining when it's the right time to add more validators to the network based on the traffic. And this way we can always keep capacity greater than demand so that you don't have that congestion that occurs or queue of transactions that build up where gas fees start to rise. And this is the network autonomously determining when to add these validators. There's no humans or developers involved in activating standby nodes and allowing them to become validators. The other really cool thing is that in Shardeum, these validators some of these validators get swapped out with standby nodes every 60 seconds. So anyone in the world can operate a validator node. Sometimes you'll be waiting on standby, but every once in a while you'll be added to validation and be able to participate in the network. So with that, we're going to take a pause from the demo and get back to the presentation. I'll hand the mic over to Shasad Nathani, Head of Operations and Partnerships at Shardeum, to talk about some of the business updates that have occurred over the last quarter.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and being part of our demo. It's a pleasure to be presenting to all the people who are attending the presentation with us. So the last quarter has been phenomenal. I mean, the amount of excitement we have seen in the market space has been just unbelievable. Been attending a lot of conferences with our team here. Greg, we had Nischal also show up at the 2049 in Singapore, and the whole team was there, plus a lot of shows within the US and abroad, including Korea, where Greg was there for the Busan conference. The response has just been phenomenal. I mean, we've seen people all across showing a lot of excitement. As part of our growth and development, we've been looking at projects to onboard onto Shardeum. These have been projects which are medium to large size organizations who are looking at coming on board. I am not going to name any at this point, but we have 6 of them almost at a point where we are signing agreements. And these range from, the typical, the bread and butter organizations which come onto a blockchain, which are wallets and AMMs and swaps, etc., onto specialized projects such as supply chain management, etc., who would be coming on board very, very soon. So stay tuned as we move forward on this space. Also, as part of our growth and part of our commitment to the environment, we are looking at making Shardeum a green chain. We've been talking to a lot of projects who basically will help us become carbon neutral, and that's also on our cards as we move forward. In terms of our team, we have grown, as Nischal mentioned earlier, to a size of 35, and this has been phenomenal because at the beginning of the year, we were a team of 6, and we are now a team of 35. We've got Jeremy here with us, who heads our human resources, and he's the head of people, and I'd like him to say a few words at this point. Jeremy? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy, head of people here at Shardeum, and yeah, just want to really echo, everything that Shazad just said around how much excitement I'm seeing on the talent acquisition and recruiting front. It seems like every new role that we populate onto our careers page gets thousands and thousands of applicants, and just really validating the excitement that people have for what we're building and wanting to be a part of it. So since our last quarterly update, we have nearly grown our foundation team by 50%. Largely focused on engineering headcount. And this is as a result of us really building over the last 3 months a strong foundation on the talent acquisition and recruiting front, building a really strong recruiting machine, building out technical recruiters on our team, Will, who joined as well over the last few months. So we have a lot more work to do, and we're going to continue to aggressively grow the team across a lot of different types of roles. So please bookmark our careers page, share it with your friends and your communities, and just help us continue to grow in a really amazing way. So thank you, everybody. Big team effort.
Thank you, Jeremy. So moving on, we do have openings at various levels. We are still filling in slots, and we'll continue to keep hiring. Look at the shardeum.org page, go down to careers, and anybody who's interested, reach out to Jeremy. He's there, available to help you all out. With that, I give the mic back to Andrew, who's going to tell us where we stand in the demo.
Thank you. All right, so we've increased we've launched several more load testers, and the load went from like 170 up to around 250, and the desired nodes that the network wants to have. This will do a big update for a second and catch back up. The desired nodes is now set to 417. Now, in the spirit of live demos, doing surprises, I normally am expecting to see more nodes syncing right now. So we might get to 348, and that might be where the demo scales today. Last 2 or 3 tests all went to 500 nodes without just fine, but we'll see if a few more join in a minute. But that's like real life demos for you. Oh yeah, I can talk like we're not putting out like exact like validator specifications for a while, but I mean, just for context, like these are not heavy duty nodes. They're like T3 mediums, so 2 virtual cores and I think like 8, maybe 4 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, 4. So they're that maybe won't that is not necessarily our min specification at the end of the day, but to me it's exciting to see like an army of relatively small servers come together and be able to produce and in a trustless way a heavy load of like smart contract transactions here. But I will say that it does look like we got a little bit stuck here on 348 nodes. So let's see. Our nodes are still pretty happy in terms of like individual node load, but our network definitely is like it's on the like medium to high side of the load that it wants. So the network would rather be at 417 nodes, but it's at 348. So in a minute, we might just go ahead and do like, so the other part of auto scaling is that we can scale back down as well. So if we don't see this jump up to nodes start syncing in a minute, we'll cut the load back down, and then we'll watch the network scale back down to match the current load level.
On our ecosystem. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Andrew. The ecosystem is a really exciting part of the project to be working on. As a layer 1 blockchain, Shardeum is essentially a platform, and we can build a community of people on top of it that are building really exciting applications. Really anything. You can even create like media outlets. We have different communities all over the world on Twitter called, Shardeum Nigeria, Shardeum Africa, Shardeum India. Different communities around the world are creating Twitter accounts. We have Shardeum News, just a group of people that created a news channel about Shardeum and are kind of covering the recent events in the ecosystem. One really exciting thing that's happened over the past few months is over 15 applications have been deployed on our testnet Shardeum Liberty. All of these applications organically came to the blockchain. We haven't started, investing in like paid efforts to grow the ecosystem. Over the last quarter, we only recently hired our first DevRel, Marcus Wentz, who really focuses full time on, helping onboard new developers to the ecosystem. And so these applications range from AMMs. We have one called Swap Finance, one called Shardeum Swap, a few others. Even this week, our first AMM aggregator, similar to 1inch chain hash, deployed on Shardeum, which is really exciting. We also have an NFT marketplace, which is on Shardeum, some different games deploying. So it's really exciting to see the innovation here. And since we've built for the EVM, it's really easy for just developers to onboard to Shardeum because there's already so many people in the world that know Solidity. There's so many open source Solidity-based projects that have been built. And so for a lot of these technologies, they sort of start to become a commodity where it's really easy for people to just, clone or fork the existing applications out there and deploy them on Shardeum. When launching a new blockchain, one thing that's really important is to get the right infrastructure in place to support developers. For example, if you don't have an Oracle integrated with your chain, you don't have the ability to take off-chain data and bring it on-chain. And so your use cases are only limited to what's available with the existing on-chain data. So we've been spending a lot of time partnering and discovering the top infrastructure products in Web3. These range from like file storage systems like IPFS and Pinata, Lighthouse Storage, and Crust Network, to different Oracle products we're talking to like Chainlink, Super Oracle's Pith Network, different like RPC node providers that we're getting set up with. So when our BetaNet and mainnet launches, high throughput applications will be able to run their own private RPC nodes. And we're also really excited about the ability to be multi-chain and work with different interoperability providers like bridges and atomic swap protocols where you can transfer assets from different EVM chains over to Shardeum and vice versa. That's been the focus of the ecosystem, and we've sponsored ETH India, which is the largest hackathon of the year in Asia. There's over 5,000 developers attending ETH India next month, and Shardeum is one of the sponsors there. So developers in India will be building on the Shardeum chain. We also sponsored your hackathon, which is happening right now, and we're sponsoring a series of hackathons called Ultra Hacks, with our focus primarily being in India today as it relates to the go-to-market. Most of the hackathons we're sponsoring are in India right now, but really excited to start expanding globally. So those are the updates for the ecosystem. Do you want to go back to Andrew real quick and see how the network's performing?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have Omar join now to talk about the tech updates.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. So yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit, but you guys can see this slide, so you pretty much can see like there's been a lot of work done. So Liberty is the name of our AlphaNet. So we did, we've already done the 1.0 release, and we did the 2.0 AlphaNet release, with the key difference being that the 1.0 is unsharded, and the 2.0 actually has sharding going on. But to use that, you have to make sure that your transactions are EIP 2930 compliant. And to support all these things, we've had to do a lot of improvements and updates to our validators, our archiver nodes, and we also got in the middle of the quarter, we got hit with some DDoS attacks. I don't know who wants to spend money and risk going to jail to try to stop a testnet, but I guess there's people out there that are doing that. So we had to deal with DDoS attacks in the middle of the quarter as well. So that kind of slowed us down a bit. But yeah, so we've gotten over that. But it's everything that doesn't kill us just makes us stronger. So it's all good. And then we also had some improvements on our gateways and explorers, and overall building a lot of good tools. And we've also done some really interesting node reward policy simulations. So we're actually putting in a lot of thought behind how we do the node reward. It's not for a sharded network. It's really important what you choose for that policy. With an unsharded network, you can get away with that policy not being correct and still, you know, deal with the network. But that's not going to work for a sharded network. So we're putting in a lot of effort in determining what the node reward policy is going to be. And the next thing that's coming up for us is the BetaNet launch. And we're shooting for end of this year or beginning of next year for that. And once that happens, then the community will be able to run validators and join the network. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm sure the community is looking forward to doing that. You can actually run nodes probably from your home and join the rest of the network and see what that's like. So we've made a lot of progress here because a year ago we actually demonstrated something similar to this where we did autoscaling along with linear scaling, but that was on a Libretus network. So there's been 4 to 5 years of work that's happened on the Shardeus project, which allows us to be able to build Shardeum so quickly. So after I demonstrated, the team demonstrated autoscaling back in late 2021, and Nischal saw that demonstration and reached out to me, and then that's when we talked about creating Shardeum. And by February of 2022, we launched Shardeum, and in just this much time, we've actually been able to get the EVM integration, and actually now we're demonstrating autoscaling in a sharded network, which is also a smart contract platform. So that is like really amazing. Just want to to kind of put a perspective on this. This is kind of the equivalent of seeing a rocket land back on the launch pad, but the blockchain version of it, right? So so we're making like really good progress, but the underlying technology that is allowing us to do that is Shardeus. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, who can maybe kind of give us an update on what's happening with the network.
Cool. Thanks, Omar. So what we did in the last few minutes is we turned off our load testers, and a few of them will be like turning back on in a minute to just be putting like a low steady amount of load on the network. But what you can see, the important thing is here that the desired count is going down. So that means that, if I can zoom in here, it's a little hard to see because we have so many nodes. I think I need to refresh the page just to. All right. Oh yeah, so these purple dots are representing nodes exiting the network, and so let me explain that in just a second. First, I won't. I like to interrupt my own self. So these little blue arrows here, they're pointing down. That means that those nodes in the network are consenting that the network can scale down because the load is lower. So you can see we had higher loads here. We cut it like way down, and so right now we're deploying more contracts, and the load will start up again, but it'll be a lower level, so the network will still be okay with scaling down, even though there's still transactions going on. Yeah, so you notice the blue arrows, they hop around. That's because of something we just found, like in the preparation for this demo, as we're, every time you reach for new milestones and node counts, you like maybe encounter like an engineering challenge. And so we upgraded our scaling vote gossip so that much larger networks could gossip efficiently on scaling. So we can see nodes kind of voting down, and actually they've voted down like multiple cycles in a row. Because loads in the real world kind of change over time, this demo is really like forcing a lot of change in a small amount of time. In the real world, loads generally kind of ebb and flow throughout the day, or depending on like app popularity and whatnot. And so you only kind of want to like vote and change the desired node count a certain amount at a time. But that is gonna kind of work to aim towards meeting the correct amount of nodes. And so over 5 or 6 cycles, the network kept voting down until it said, yeah, we only need 250 nodes desired, because this network's configured to say like 250 is the minimum network size, and it won't scale down below that. And the active node count is 293. So we've been dropping nodes. It doesn't shed nodes as fast as it adds nodes. That's just kind of a current setting. We'll be doing like more research on that to figure out like what's the optimal amount there. You want like a bit of a resistance to like network constantly changing size. So sometimes you want a threshold where you don't just drop add all the time. And so that's why it scales down slower than it scales up currently. So yeah, the transactions are coming in. The magenta dots basically represent, so we had like a lot more, we had more shards before, but because everything's dynamically sharded, as we drop nodes from the network, neighbor nodes are dynamically syncing small bits of data from their neighbors, basically, because the network sharding factor is decreasing. And so, yeah, the network's going to continue to go down. We can keep talking through questions and whatever's next on the demo.
Like one of the questions is why does the network like shed nodes? Like why, if the TPS drops to, say the TPS right now is at 250, and then in an hour from now the TPS drops to 10 TPS, why doesn't the network just keep the existing number of validators in the network? Why are we shedding those?
Yeah, I mean that's just all about like network efficiency. We just want to.
Network efficiency really means node rewards, right? Like you don't want to pay out a lot of node rewards to validators if you don't need all those validators.
Exactly. Like it's just the coin is healthier. The reward rates are healthier if we're rewarding like the correct amount of nodes to do the job at hand.
Great. So right now the number of validators are just reducing to the most efficient number of validators needed to process the current node.
Correct. And we're actually down to 260. So probably in like 2 cycles, we'll be down to 250 nodes.
What is a cycle?
Oh yeah, a cycle is a process in specifically this network where the active nodes have a consensus on who's permitted to join the network. If they do join, what shard do they live in? I mean, yeah.
So that's similar to like an epic or epoch that happens on some of the other networks. But what is the duration of our cycle? Like when do cycles occur?
Currently it's 60 seconds, but when we someday when we're thinking about 1 million nodes in the network, maybe it has to be like 5 minutes or something.
Okay.
But for now we're happy with 60 seconds.
Yeah, but we're not going to have to wait like 12 hours for this resizing of the network to occur. It'll be pretty, like when the network is smaller, it'll be pretty like consistent, maybe every 60 seconds or 1 or 2 minutes. And then when we get to an extremely large network of maybe 1 million nodes, it can be every few minutes, like 5 to 10.
Yep.
Cool. And then one final question is, how do we determine which nodes to shed? We're not just like looking at the reputation of nodes and shedding them, right?
So like reputation would be kind of like a separate thing, but as far as what nodes leave the network, it's basically the nodes that have been in the network longest, because we always have regular cycling going on. People will like I'm gonna put a validator or 2 validators up in the Shardeum network, and they'll be in the standby list. And then there's a deterministic random process that selects standby nodes to become active. You go active, and then you basically stay in the network for a number of cycles until you're the oldest one in the network. And when you're the oldest node in the network, then you basically leave and go back to the standby list. And
nice. And the new nodes are added. There's no real way for the node operator to choose when they're added to the network or which shard they're added to, right?
It's cryptographically impossible.
Awesome.
And the one question before you hand the mic out to Greg, you mentioned the word dynamic a few times. It's a dynamic sharding, dynamic scaling.
Yeah.
For somebody who's attending our demo for the first time, can you explain what that means?
Got it. So I'll first start by saying like what a static sharding model would be, or just sharding in general, is that if I have my set of all my accounts and I have 5 shards, then if they're static shards, like shard 1 holds like 1/5 of all the users approximately, shard 2 holds 1/5 of all the users, and so on. And those are not changing. Maybe the project might change them over time with some intervention process, but our approach to it is dynamic sharding, and that means that sometimes we talk about shard size because it's the conceptually most easy way to talk about it, but I think it's one of those things they say about science where like sometimes to say it perfectly you have to get to a lot more details. But with dynamic sharding, essentially every node in the network is covering a slightly different address space. But because our transactions are they're not stuck into blocks, and because our network is dynamically sharded, yeah, every node handles a slightly different portion of the address space, and that means that when you add one node to 250 nodes, the network is actually slightly faster.
So with the addition of every node, we are able to demonstrate scalability. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, because the amount of work each node has to do just decreases every time you add more. Yep.
Yeah, I think Nischal explained it best to put it in simple terms. Like in an unsharded network, every single node is going to store the data and process the transactions for my wallet, your wallet, and Shazad's wallet. In a static sharded network, you're going to have groups of nodes that form shards, and maybe one shard processes my wallet's transactions and stores my wallet's data. One group of nodes, or shard B, stores your wallet's data and processes your wallet's transactions, and the third shard, processes Shazad's transactions and Shazad's wallet's data. And now in a dynamic state sharded network, each individual node in the network is covering a unique range of wallets or addresses, and so maybe some of the nodes store my wallet, and maybe some of the nodes that's storing my wallet also store your wallet, but there's some unique nodes that store your wallet and process your wallet's transactions, and the same goes for Shazad as well.
Can I say one more thing? All right, thanks. Yeah, and I just want to say, since we got down to 250 nodes, which was the min node level, the network has jumped back into rotation mode. So now, kind of one at a time, one node's going to hop out, and this little yellow node here is just rotating back into the network. So that's how it will continue for now at this load level. And yeah.
There's actually one question crowd was asking. It was, does the EVM run on every node?
Yes, it does. Yeah, the EVM runs on every single validator here. And yeah, what's really cool about this is a transaction will come in, and it can involve accounts, but it can also in the EVM involve contract storage data, contract code, and everything. And so the Shardist protocol level coordinates things so that the correct nodes form dynamic groups to share the data in a trustless way. Then a kind of a designated group of nodes will actually execute the EVM for that transaction, and then gossip the data back to the others. Yep.
Awesome. What an amazing presentation, and I think it's so cool to see that we didn't just achieve auto scaling, but just the fact that it's state sharded and each node is storing a unique range of addresses, and also able to retain atomic composability, where you can call different contracts on different shards at the same time in one transaction and retain composability atomically is super exciting. We're really excited to get BetaNet launched and be able to provide the same composability experience that you have on Ethereum or any unsharded blockchain, but benefit from linear scaling, where now the network is growing and shrinking number of validators to increase or decrease TPS. This is going to enable some really exciting new use cases to be built that aren't limited by congestion and scalability bottlenecks. So with that, I wanted to let our DevRel Marcus Wentz talk about some exciting updates that will be coming with EIP 2930 and our BetaNet. Take it away, Marcus.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think someone also had a question about node types with a validator versus archive and standby. So an archive, I shared the doc as well in the chat if guys if they want to take a look too. But basically, an archive node will keep all the data, and the standby is like kind of someone who's like if you're playing baseball and there's someone like on the bench waiting to bat. That's kind of like how it works. Or like if you want to have more people come onto the field at one point, then they could come on and then they could come back off once there's less load to deal with. So yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm kind of excited for the community is this RPC call that we're testing. I have it here. I think it's called ETH get access list. So the idea is that the way Shardeum does cross shard composability is we use EIP 2930, which is so from a solidity standpoint, everything is the same, but from like Web3.js and like other backend stuff, you have to kind of build that access list. So what we're trying to do is kind of automate that so that you don't have to, when you're jumping cross shard to different contracts, you don't have to do all that math. That'll be pre-computed for you. So it'll make everything very simple. And a lot of people are asking about like running nodes, like just like specifications for the nodes, like how to run them and like what to watch out for. But I think it's estimated, I think Q4 this year, we'll have more info on how to run nodes, right? Right, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess before we have people running the data. Okay.
Yeah, here. Yeah, we'll have all the specs in our docs before the BetaNet is launched, so everyone knows what's needed to run different nodes in the network. Those are really good example, Marcus, or a good analogy for standby nodes of people waiting on a bench in a baseball field. Those standby nodes are people who are operating the hardware needed to run a validator, and they're just waiting on standby until those nodes are activated to become active validators, and standby and active validators can be swapped every cycle, which currently is 60 seconds. So we've made a lot of great progress over the past quarter in our ecosystem growth and getting 2 testnets live. We're developing really fast. Jeremy and Will are doing an amazing job of growing the team. And we're excited for to continue scaling quickly and working towards reaching mainnet. So as Marcus mentioned, we're going to make it super simple for EIP 2930 to be automated and inject access lists in our transactions. So benefiting from atomic composability on our BetaNet is really easy and convenient. We're working towards launching our BetaNet this quarter. BetaNet will essentially be a replica of it. It'll be the first time the community can operate nodes. And it'll have auto-scaling implemented and have that EIP 2930 automation. Marcus and I and the ecosystem team are launching Shardeum missions to grow the developer community. We're going to be posting one challenge each week for developers to solve. This could be a coding challenge where you need to find hidden bugs in a code, or it could be a problem statement where you're able to build a solution to solve like a problem, a figurative or theoretical problem that someone's having in the real world, and build a decentralized use case to solve it. And you know, we'll be giving out bounties each week to reward the winner of these Shardeum missions, and also including different exciting infrastructure products in them to give developers exposure to new tools that they can learn about. Everything we're doing here at Shardeum is really focused on education and growing the Web3 ecosystem as a whole. Today, I think there are around somewhere between 200 and 250 million people in Web3. Our focus is of course, to acquire some of these current people that are in the Web3 ecosystem today, but we're really focused on the next 750 million people coming into the space and making sure that Shardeum is the first blockchain they develop on or the first chain they use. Shardeum is really... Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, we're starting to launch a lot of hackathons. As you've seen, we've been hosting a lot of proof of community meetups. Now we're going to start launching 4 to 5 hackathons a month throughout India and soon throughout the world. Our co-founder Omar and some of the senior engineers on our team are working really diligently on the white paper, getting that published and making the code open source. And we'll continue to scale these proof of community meetups globally. We just held our first proof of community meetup this week in the US in San Francisco, which was really awesome. Nischal, if you're still here, is there anything you wanted to add to the demo or the presentation?
No, all good on my end. I've been answering a lot of questions on YouTube, so nothing to add here.
Awesome. Thank you everyone so much for your attention today. Please continue to stay engaged with the community on Discord, on Twitter. Again, you know, we have one life to live and an amazing opportunity here to get involved in the Shardeum ecosystem. We can take a few minutes here for questions and answer any Q&A. Chandresh or anyone here, is there any questions that were brought up? What is the question?
Yeah, so there's a question about how dynamic state sharding enables Shardeum to increase TPS with each node. And so what that does is dynamic state sharding is kind of like part of the overall equation. But what happens is when you add one node to the network, every node has marginally less amount of accounts to be responsible for. Like one node might have been responsible for Greg's account before and have to process any transactions or hold his data. And a node added to the network and it's the borders of its account coverage would shrink ever so slightly. Now it doesn't have to process Greg's account, and that node's a little bit faster because Greg, put a transaction in the network and yeah, then it doesn't have to process it. And if you're not processing a transaction, then you're faster. And that's the whole idea of sharding is that to process less.
Yeah. As you add more nodes, each individual node has to cover less accounts. I think that's the main benefit of state sharding is to parallelize the processing of transactions and reduce the number of addresses that each validator nodes needs to cover as more addresses are added to the network. Also wanted to mention, I think, to add on to the archive nodes we talked about earlier, I just wanted to mention that archive nodes aren't involved in consensus. We offload the history of the blockchain to the archive nodes so the validators can remain extremely light. They only need to store the state of the addresses they're assigned to. Any other good questions that have come up?
Yeah, let's take a look here. Let's see, there's, how will Shardeum solve the trilemma?
Yeah, I think the trilemma, for people who don't know, is security, decentralization, and scalability. And the answer is dynamic state sharding. Being able to remain secure in a sharded environment where we have node rotation and are continuously adding and removing nodes using a deterministic random to the network every 60 seconds allows us to remain security throughout our shards. We get scalability from increasing the TPS capacity with each validator added to the network. And we're super decentralized for multiple reasons. We want to scale as much as theoretically possible without sacrificing on decentralization at all. I think it's really exciting to see that when our mainnet launches, we're launching with 1,280 validators. If you look at most of the L1s today, I think you'll be surprised to see how many of these high throughput chains, only have not many validators in the network. And 1,280 is just this. We saw with Autoscaling today. The network can continue to add more and more validators. So when it relates to decentralization, there's extremely low requirements needed to run an operator or a validator node. We're aiming for it to cost $50 to $100 a month to rent a dedicated server to operate a validator. So there's very low barriers to entry for node operators. We're changing the node operators in the network, at least a few of them every cycle. So every 60 seconds, some of the existing node operators will be swapped with the standby operators, which we demoed today. And we'll have a high distribution and a high number of validators in the network. And since these aren't like super nodes, there shouldn't need to be a lot of the distribution of stake will be high because a lot of different people in the Shardeum ecosystem will be able to run their own validator and stake to run that validator. So it's not like there's like 5 validators that are all run by just 1 or 2 organizations. There's an extremely high distribution of stake in addition to a high volume of validators. So that's how we solve the scalability trilemma. It really comes down to dynamic state sharding. Any other good questions?
Okay. So yeah, how can I run a node on Shardeum? That'll be something in beta, so we'll have more information out then. And will SHM be mineable using a GPU as well? That's a really good question because it won't be GPU mineable because GPUs don't really have a place in Shardeum because we're not using proof of work. It's different mechanisms, and so the specifications for nodes that are providing value to the network just don't need GPUs.
Yeah, so I can take the question. If the load is so heavy that all active plus stand-up nodes are used, is there any overload control applied? Yes, that's actually one of the features that we've implemented like from pretty early on. We have like a rate limiting module, which all the nodes kind of use it to sense how much load that they're under. And depending on that, they use to scale up or scale down. But if it comes to a point where all the standby nodes are in the network and there's still a lot of load and like there's not enough nodes to actually join the network, they can actually start rejecting transactions to make sure that the network continues to run, even though there's like more load than it can handle with all the nodes available. Yeah, we can keep watching for more questions until then. I think yeah. Here, we'll pass it back to Andrew.
Yeah. Just in between questions, I just want to say thanks to the entire dev team. Everyone, we're distributed throughout the world, and everyone's been working super hard. And Tant has been behind the scenes, activating and deactivating all of our load testers throughout this presentation as well. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the plan is to go open source in beta, and that we absolutely want people to look over every inch of the code because while we're in beta, that's really the time to scrutinize everything. Because the code will be open, we'll also be able to be a lot more open then about like, here's why this algorithm does what it does. Prove me wrong or whatever. Give your opinion, think about it some. So yep. How Shardeum security of
network? Yeah, Omar here. You can take the question about how does Shardeum improve the security of its network?
So, earlier Greg talked about the scalability trilemma, and so one of the biggest issues with security is, especially in a sharded network, is protecting yourself against a shard takeover attack. I'll just go over here. Yeah, so protecting yourself against a shard takeover attack is, one of the critical things that sharded networks have to look out for. So there's several things that we do in Shardium. First of all, any node that joins the network is not able to choose what shard it goes into. The network assigns it the node ID, and the node ID determines what part of the address space that node will serve. The other thing is that, as the network size increases, it becomes harder and harder for somebody to have enough nodes to, actually take over a shard. And also, the size of each shard also matters as well. The Ethereum community's done a lot of research into what's a good shard size for public networks, and they determined like somewhere between 100 to 200 nodes is a good shard size. We're planning to use 128 nodes per shard when we launch, and that'll be similar to like what Ethereum is doing as well with their shards. And then the other thing is that we have node rotation going on, so that actually increases the whole footprint of the number of nodes that you have to actually take over. So you don't just have to deal with the active nodes, but you actually would have to take over the active plus the standby nodes. So you have to have a majority of those nodes in order to do a shard takeover attack. So there's a lot of things that that go into maintaining the security of a network like this, and we've given a lot of thought and attention to that.
Awesome. I think one last thing before we wrap up. Sounds like Marcus Wentz wanted to add a few pointers. We can add Marcus and then end the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to expand more on the baseball analogy. I just said baseball, but basically, so like when you're batting, that's like a one-person job on the field. So it's like, okay, we only need one person, everyone else is in the dugout, right? But for playing defense, we need like 9 people on the field or something like that. So that's a sense where like it's like, okay, we need more people to do this job because it's much more difficult to cover all of that like space on the field. You can't just have one. Like you need someone to pitch, you need someone to catch the ball, you need people to watch the bases in the outfield. So yeah, the dugout is basically like where all the standby nodes are.
And the people on the field are the validators.
Exactly. Those are the active validators. And I would say the archive nodes are kind of like people that it's like a database for where all the scores are
The
being
fans
kept,
in
or
the
scoreboards
audience
are
storing
being
all
kept.
the information.
Yeah, they have a consensus, and like you have like the umpire as well as kind of like the part of like keeping track of like the score, and like the announcer and everyone that's watching is like a witness, and the camera that's watching, those are all witnesses as well too, to see like the history of what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus.
And also, yeah, just really quick too, in terms of because I didn't really explain when you would need EIP 2930, you would need it for like if you're just interacting with one contract, you would have no idea. But if you're doing something like you have like Aave and then you have like Uniswap, so if you want to do like a flash loan from one protocol to another protocol, assuming they're just 2 contracts you're going to touch, and you have another contract that does those calls, that's technically like that call and then that call and then that call. And assuming they're not on the same prefix, they'll be on different shards. So that's when you would need that access list to do the cross-shard composability communication.
Which is one thing that's extremely exciting, is that today DeFi is not really compatible with the current sharded networks. For example, if you have an automated market maker where each token pair is its own individual contract, the router contract and all of the token pair contracts need to exist on the same shard in the current sharded chains. And then they only have composability with the other contracts on that shard. If you had a lending protocol on a different shard and an AMM on shard B, they wouldn't be able to have composability with each other and wouldn't work. What's really exciting about Shardium is that we solved this challenge. Now DeFi can benefit from linear scaling using sharding and retain atomic composability. So with that, thanks so much everyone for joining the presentation today. I spend a lot of time researching all of the L1s and L2s in this space. I think a lot of the innovation happening on like the ZK rollup side is extremely exciting, but the only way to increase the speed of execution without scaling vertically and sacrificing on decentralization is using sharding. And today we've definitely solidified ourselves as the most advanced sharding technology in Web3. Super excited to take this to market, and we're just really excited about the growth of the community. Thanks again, everyone, for your time, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for being here, guys. Do you guys have any questions for us? I know you guys kind of just been hanging out. So feel free to ask the team if you have any questions. I don't think we're live anymore.
On the validators, they have to be in the cloud.
They don't have to be. You can. I mean, if you want to, host them all.
Fine, so,
Yeah.
So and that was another question, right? So it's not CPU, so it's CPU, right?
That's yeah.
So do you have requirements for the CPU?
It's going to be very low. For example, I mean, this network was just like two like vCPUs for like Amazon P3 Medium. So I mean, since we're scaled horizontally, we're not expecting like 16 cores. Like it's probably going to be 2 cores. Like we'll make it like more efficient later, but probably 2 cores and a smallish amount of RAM and not too much storage. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 5 at home that I'm doing tests with, and we try to collect enough data from validating that we can kind of bring it back into our security tools so that we can kind of monitor. We actually monitor Harmony blockchain, so they do Shardeum. That's one of the reasons why we chose those guys. So before I knew you guys were here.
Too bad they didn't have you working on their bridge or all
Well,
that.
see, so I'm a security guy that started studying some of the hacks that have happened. So it happened to me. So went through MetaMask. So when I went back and studied how the hack through MetaMask affected me and thousands of others, I started putting a product together. That's what I have here. So very interested in working with you guys, right? So I want to, we've got a product that digests all the blockchain data from your blockchain, and currently we're doing a lot of monitoring. Okay, so we watch the wallets as they go through. So we see all the smart contracts that are going on. So what we're starting to see is hacks that are starting to happen in the blockchain that you guys haven't even looked at yet. So very interesting, kind of working with the local team. Most of the other guys are kind of all over the place.
Yeah, talk to Omar and Andrew.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
So you're a security guy. Who do you work with?
We're a 3D